All right, welcome back to Blue by the Numbers. I'm Tanner, joined by my co-host Brian. Michigan is coming off of a big win over their in-state rival on Saturday. So, Brian, how are you? How was the weekend? How was the game for you?
It was really good. It started off a little shaky, but it was really fun. It was very gratifying to get that W and the way that they did, and just a really competitive game. It felt great. So it was actually with my nephew, who's a Michigan State student at the game, and so he was, kind of giving it to me early on. But yeah, no, it felt great. Great team win. I loved how they did it. The no penalties, the no turnovers. It felt really, really good. How was your weekend?
It was good, man. The tailgate was awesome. Had a great time. Our buddy Andrew Vistardis, 2021 Big Ten champ, came through. I was telling you this before. It's so funny. Like, Andrew played football at Michigan. He started, for a team that won the Big Ten, beat Ohio State, went to the playoff.
Part
And
of
at
the
the
Joe Moore
tailgate,
Awards line.
absolutely. I mean, and he's coming up to me, and I'm like, I should be coming up to you, man. But no, we had a lot of fun. Met the Moody's, met Jake Moody's family. His parents were super nice, and so we had, star-studded tailgate and had a great time, and that led into the game. I watched it home with my wife and daughter, who was sleeping for most of it, but would have loved to have been there for the atmosphere. It sounded actually decently loud. I didn't know how the crowd would kind of turn out, but sounded like a good environment for a lot of those recruits that were there as well. So yeah, all in all, great weekend. Lions won again and beat the absolute snot out of the Tennessee Titans. So yeah, all in all, a good weekend. And honestly, a lot of that starts with our boy Davis Warren. Hold on to the football, protecting the football, preventing turnovers. What'd you think of Davis's performance on Saturday? Because I was happy with it.
Anyone that's watched and listened to us know that we've been Davis Warren fans all along, that he was our guy, that we thought he got benched a little too early, and that we were both really excited that he got the start. I thought he played exactly how they needed him to play. He was decisive. He made I can think of 4 third and 5, third and 8 passes that I think that's what this offense needs, is a quarterback that can convert there. The one to Peyton O'Leary, the one to Samaj, the one to Kendrick Bell, and the one to I'm drawing a blank. But all third and 5, third and 6, and that's what we need. I mean, we don't need someone to go throw for 260 yards. We just need someone with third and 5 and third and 8 to make a good decision and make a decisive throw. And he was really on target. I thought he played a great game. It was a treat to watch. The game was not without its angst and its nervous moments, because the start wasn't great. But I thought, when we're just grading and evaluating Davis Warren, he lived up to what we all hoped he would be.
No, absolutely. And I think when it comes to Davis, to your point about kind of wanting to stick with him, I was of the mind of, hey, if you're going to go with Alex Orji, it's because you have something in the game plan that's designed around his abilities as a football player, not just as a limited passer, but in the run game. And beyond Davis, whose performance I thought was really strong, I loved the throw on the flea flicker.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big time throw. You could tell he's probably got the most live arm of the quarterbacks that we've seen thus far, by without question. But he's running around making some plays, extending the play, making throws across the field and across his body that were safe throws. Right? It's not like he's just throwing stuff up. Like, he's making good, smart decisions. But the thing about Alex Orji is that the way they utilized him in the game, I thought was fantastic.
Ugh.
And I thought, and PFF agrees, I thought the O-line, for the most part, looked a lot better, especially in pass pro for Davis. Now, how much of that is Michigan State's defensive line maybe being a little under, below average? I'm not sure. But it was just nice to see from that perspective. Davis plays well. He's got some time, and when the pocket, kind of breaks down, he's able to escape. And then when they bring Alex Orji in, he has crucial plays. I mean, he scores a touchdown to give them a 2-score lead in the third quarter. He gets a couple first downs on the last drive of the game that allows Michigan to kneel it out. So it was just really nice to see kind of some cohesiveness with the quarterback situation, where Alex Orji can help you win games, as he did on Saturday, when utilized properly, right? And Davis Warren can help you win games as well. So I was just really impressed by the way that the staff was able to put something together that, yeah, they scored 24 points. It wasn't the greatest performance in the world. It wasn't 2019 LSU, but it was something that they had a path to victory. And after that slow start defensively, they were able to, settle in on offense and, get out to a 2-score lead, and then stretch it to a 2-score lead in the fourth quarter, and that helped them get the win. So, yeah, I was impressed with the way the staff handled it. Davis Warren especially too. I mean, he's sick of hearing about it, and I'm kind of sick of talking about it because we all know what he's been through. But I think his ability to persevere and his kind of personal experience allows him to just let things roll off and not, get too low. I think that was probably a huge part of him being able to just get back into the starting position and, have no issues.
Yeah, I think that he, sometimes in these games, beyond the box score, I think it's so many times with JJ and other quarterbacks where there's that almost pick or that tip that could have been a pick or that really bad decision that there was none of that. Like there wasn't anything that was like close where, the box score doesn't say it because a DB dropped the ball or that something got tipped. His balls were either catchable or kind of thrown away. And, he missed some, of course, but not many. But there weren't any close calls there. And then for Orji, I felt like when they gave him the starting job, when he decided to run, everything was up the middle, up the middle, up the middle. To Michigan State's credit, you talked about their defensive line not being able to get a pass rush. They did stuff that middle of the line pretty well. Like Mullings was pretty ineffective. And I love to see them use Donovan Edwards and Alex Orji how they should be used on the edges, take advantage of the athleticism. And so I was thrilled to see Edwards out in space, Orji out in space. They both recognize, which they failed to do several times throughout the year, when to bounce it outside. I just thought, when that game was tight early on, you saw on the socials and some of the, chats I'm with and text chains I'm on, people were so frustrated with the play calling. And I thought Kirk Campbell called a really good game. I think Michigan wants their identity is to run that smash mouth up the middle. And Michigan State took that away to their credit. And Campbell adapted. I mean, I thought that second half game plan was really, really good.
Yeah, no, I thought, and sometimes you talk about kind of the last 4 minutes of the first half, first 4 minutes of the middle eight, right? The last the first four of the second half. I mean, Michigan, they scored 16 points in that part of the game. And so, I think Michigan, again, defensively hunkered down after the first couple of drives where MSU, misses a field goal from very short distance and then they go in and score the next drive. But, the defense really allowed the offense to kind of keep within itself and utilize the game plan that Kirk and Sharon probably wanted to, where it's more kind of ball control. And, they didn't take any shots. I'd still like to see them open things up, but your best deep threat's out in Marion Walker on Saturday. So hopefully he's going to be healthy moving forward. I think he adds an element to the offense. Well, yes, they haven't completed anything downfield. Just the threat of that might, make teams not so ready to kind of load the box, right?
100%.
So, but yeah, I thought overall, quarterbacks were really solid. Again, Orji, I thought had a fantastic game. I mean, he ran for he was like 10 carries for 64 yards or something like that.
6 carries, 64 yards.
6 carries. Okay, so he was okay. That's where I got the 10 from because he was over 10 yards an attempt.
Right.
So with the touchdown, he played very well, and from last year where he put the finishing touches on the 49-0 game, he puts the finishing touches on this one.
Orji in the end zone.
Yes. Always love to see Alex Orji get a touchdown, man. That's I just want to say this too, and we talked about this last year, and we haven't really had a lot of opportunities to kind of, shower these kids in praises. But man, you got to think like the way that these guys have handled the really difficult situation they've been put in this quarterback room has been nothing short of phenomenal. No one's sulked, no one's pouted, and when they're called upon, they've seized their opportunities coming back into the game. So you just really awesome to see the character of these guys. We know Davis from being on our podcast and being friends with him. I've never personally met Alex Orji, but just really impressed with the way these guys are able to handle themselves and come in, and when their number's called, they make a play. So it was really awesome. You touched on the running backs. Just wasn't a lot there for them. Khalil, I think, had 14 carries for 18 yards. So not his best game. Donovan, I think he was like 9 for 24, but he had a couple catches. One of those catches was a big time reception that set them up with a shorter field goal at the end of this first half. So,
correct.
I think that's, for whatever reason, it still kind of continues to be a work in progress. They've had to shuffle along the O-line all season long with injuries. So tough to really kind of gather anything from there. And you mentioned the receivers too. I thought, not a huge eye-popping day, but when their number was called, they made plays. And how about Peyton O'Leary getting up the sideline? I don't think I've seen that from him.
I bet you most fans that watch that game would be surprised to know that of the skill position players, other than Colston Loveland, no one played more snaps than Peyton O'Leary on Saturday. So I mean, the team believes in him for all the responsibilities of, uh, the wide receivers in this offense. I mean, I do think it says something not so great about what we have at that position right now that he's playing that much. And that's not a knock on O'Leary, but when you recruit to the level that you're supposed to recruit at Michigan, to have a guy like him playing that much, I think that says some things that aren't great, but
things that probably will be addressed here in the next month.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. When the portal opens and,
yes.
potentially some movement in the high school recruiting area. So that's certainly going to be an area that will be improved. But, Peyton O'Leary is a guy that, when he's had his number called, has made some plays as well.
Definitely.
He caught a pass in the Big Ten championship.
Yes,
last year. So it's not like he's just, they don't have a ton of options, but, he's earned his playing time as well at the same time.
Definitely.
Tight end, Michigan's got the best one in the country. Maybe one of the better trash talkers. He said, he talked about getting busy. But I've heard, young, that was something that I heard like on TV as a kid, from like adults on TV. Now it's like, those people are now like in their 50s and 60s that we're using that terminology. And now, Colson is.
What are they teaching these kids in Idaho?
I don't know, man. His accent is not very Idahoan either.
It isn't. No, it's not.
But no, I mean, he had 2 touchdown catches. He made big plays all over the field. And I don't know what other tight ends in the country are doing. And he probably's got to get a couple more touchdowns here and there. But probably still should win the Mackey just based on the fact that he is like the one lone option on Michigan's offense at this point.
I think that award is going to be a Big Ten award. It's going to be him or the guy at Penn State.
Yes.
He's having a really good year.
He had like 13 catches against USC.
Yeah.
But yeah, Colson was phenomenal. Brady was Brady. Nothing that I could really point to there. They had him run like a slant. Davis wasn't a great ball, but it wasn't wasn't put in harm's way. But a tough catch for Max Bredesen. But otherwise, Colson Loveland is just an absolute monster, and I love having him on the team. And he's going to leave at least 3-0 against Michigan State. We'll see what happens with the last game of the year, but at the very least, he's going to leave 5-1 against his rivals. That's so nice to see that. We talked about that on the podcast earlier this week, where all you heard about with Jim Harbaugh's first 6 games against Michigan State and Ohio State, he's 1-5. Well, Brian, if you look and you do the math, the last 6 games against Michigan State and Ohio State, Michigan is 6-0.
Okay. Not too bad.
Not too bad. Offensive line, we kind of touched on a little bit. Gio El-Hadi was on the PFF team of the week.
Yes.
Graded out at an 89.
Might be our highest grade of the year for a single game for one of our offensive.
It might have been a higher grade than we had last year. I mean, the way they grade.
It may have been. Yeah, they don't grade a lineman that high.
Yeah, I definitely could tell. I could feel his impact on the field, and I thought. So let's talk about the injury to Gentry. So Gentry takes over the starting spot, goes down with an injury, and Evan Link comes in, plays 38 snaps, does not give up a single pressure.
Right.
That's awesome. Right? That's awesome.
Answer the bell.
That's a kid who's been, fair or unfair. A lot of people have had a lot of things to say, and we've had conversations, but we try to keep it to a right tackle as our descriptor, right? Because he's a college kid, he's 19. But really awesome to see him, kind of step in. I didn't notice any drop offs. I thought he was fine, and if he's going to be fine as a redshirt freshman, perfect. We can work with that moving into next year as he's able to get another year of strength and conditioning under his belt. But yeah, again, I mean, offensively, with the O-line, as far as the run game is concerned, I think Michigan State did a lot of really good things to kind of take away what Michigan's strengths were in the run game. But in the pass game, they held up.
No doubt. Yeah.
So offensively, he did enough to win. So switching gears to the defense, I think to your point about people complaining on social media about play calling and coordinators, I have to put my hand up. I was at the tailgate. I had some beverages. I tweeted some things that were not so kind about the defensive performance. I deleted those tweets.
A little bit out of your character because that's not really you.
No, but to be fair, the reason I don't live tweet games anymore is because I was going to so many games that I couldn't get reception, and now I just have Wi-Fi at home if I'm not at the stadium. Not been much to complain about. I don't know, man. It was just so here's what I'll say, and we'll kind of break down the position groups. But here's what I'll say as far as the game plan and the some of the designs that Michigan's defense has had this season, which I still don't understand why Mason Graham ever lines up anywhere outside of head up on a guard. There's just no need. And it just feels like something that a team can take advantage of is like, oh, 55's over here. We're going to run literally the opposite way. And the other thing is the third and longs. I don't know what the solution is. I don't make 2 whatever million dollars either. So it's tough to watch when you have a team, and somebody at 247 broke it down, and it was crazy. It was like 3rd and 12, 14-yard gain, a 3rd and 9, 30-yard gain. Like there was multiple big chunk plays on third and longs. And I think I saw MGO blog put out that Michigan so far this year has given up as many 3rd and long conversions as they did last year, and they're giving up twice the percentage. Last year, I think offenses were 15% on 3rd and long against Michigan. This year, they're 31%, which is also worse than the 2020 year. So I don't know, man. What are your thoughts on this defense? Because there's a lot of talent, but it seems like we're seeing guys miss a lot of tackles too. That's not always on the coordinator. So I don't know, but there are guys that we've seen play at Michigan that haven't had this problem before. So I don't know what to think.
I mentioned when it came to Davis Warren how he didn't really have any close calls. I was going to chart it, but it's just anyone that watched the game. We had so many plays where we had guys tackled for like a 4 or 5 yard loss or a 1 yard gain that turned into, 4, 5, 6, 15 more yards. I mean, so many close calls. That game could have been way more lopsided. It had guys wrapped up. I mean, there were just so many times where it was, one of my best friends wasn't able to watch the game. So I was for the first part of the game, and I was kind of just texting him updates. And it was like, that was a play that should have been a 4 yard loss that went for 4 yards. And that was a play that we should have tackled for a 1 yard game that went for 17 yards. I mean, just so many missed tackles. I can't remember a Michigan team. You have to go back to the Rich Rod era to have a team that misses this many tackles. It's bad.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's a lot of guys that, made plays for this team last year. So,
yeah,
it's just like, I feel like we're this close. And I bet you if you're Wink, you think, gosh, I wouldn't be getting all this criticism. And I also have plenty of criticism of the schemes. But he's probably sitting there watching the tape thinking, if that guy makes that tackle right there, nobody said anything because we're off the field on that, So there was a lot of that. And so, play with Oregon coming in this week, they got to be sure tacklers.
Yeah, because those guys will be gone in a hurry.
Those guys will.
They've got some athletes.
I thought Kenneth Grant played, another great game. I mean, just a difference maker. In the fumble recovery, I loved his answer on that. We wanted to pick up that ball and run because we know how athletic he is. But he tried to scoop the one earlier in the year and then the fumble, and he's like, I learned my lesson.
I know, but if I think you see him, he looks up and he's like, oh.
Yeah, I know. He had time.
Yeah, he had some room. I don't know if he would have scored, but certainly would have maybe had an opportunity for Michigan to try to throw something up. But hey, it all works out in the end.
Got a field goal out of it.
I thought KG, he had a huge play on a 3rd and 1 that he just blew up individually that forced Michigan State to kick a field goal. I believe that's when it was 16-7 in the third quarter.
Nate Carter,
huge play. Nate Carter. We talked about him last year after the game. That kid is a ball player. I really like his game. He made plays against the Michigan team last year, which you can't really say that much for anybody else in 2023. And he's a really good football player. So I don't know. Is he out of eligibility? I hope that kid's a ball player.
Yeah, I think he's a senior.
He's a really good football player.
Right.
But yeah, KG I thought had a solid game. Mason Graham, despite being lined up at the 9 tech sometimes all the way out, it looked like Aiden Hutchinson's starting stance on the defensive end for the Lions. Had a really solid game as well. Made quite a few plays. Really, really happy with having Mason Graham on your football team. That's just a nice thing to have. If you can have a Mason Graham on your team, you take it. Some rotational guys got it. Benny was out. I noticed Michigan went with a lot of 3 interior D line looks, and I think if Benny's in there, those probably are look a little bit better. Playing some younger guys like Trey Pierce and Ike played a little bit as well. So. What'd you think of the edges? Because Josiah had the strip sack, just continuously making huge plays, but Derek Moore actually graded out higher per PFF I think it was, I'm going to say it was like 38% win rate on pass rushes or something kind of
He was
ridiculous.
all over the place. That game. He
Yes,
was.
yes.
It showed. One thing about the defensive ends and Rashawn Benny is part of me feels like, not to go back in our conversation, but having Mason Graham on the edge doesn't make a lot of sense. The one time it would make sense, and maybe it's a scheme that they fell in love with at camp, if you're trying to get Benny on the field and trying to get all three of the big guys out on the field, then that can kind of make sense. Like, okay, we have Benny and Grant at the tackle, the interior position, you have Graham coming on the outside. That's a lot for any offensive line to take. But with Benny not there, it's like you got to realize your personnel. But to answer your question, the ends, Josiah Stewart is playing as good as we've had since Aiden Hutchinson. He's having a amazing year. His draft stock has gone from being probably a high third round pick to, I've seen many mock drafts with him at the back end of the first round.
I will die on the hill that he should be a first rounder.
No doubt. And it'll be interesting to see what they do in his spot next year. I know, I think TJ Guy's got a year left. I saw a draft analyst that said that Michigan should convince Barham to come back and move him to edge. Has so much speed, and that seems to be his wheelhouse.
That's a great segue because I was going to talk about that kid is just a freak athlete. I mean, maybe not as instinctual of a football player as Devin Bush, all the comparisons, right? The Devin Bush was 6'3", 245. But I do understand what they saw, and I'm seeing it now. And yeah, I would love to see him coming off the edge. I think he could be a fantastic player, and he'd have a lot of versatility, right? Kind of in a Jalen Harrell role, who's earning a lot of playing time with the Tennessee Titans right now.
Or Josh Uche, I think kind of fits that mold a little bit.
Yeah. By the way, this is a Michigan podcast, but Brad Holmes.
Come on, dude.
A 2026 sixth rounder for Uche. You let him go to the Chiefs? I don't know. We'll see what they do. The trade deadline's not for a week, so it's fine. But yeah, I thought Houseman made some plays. He blew up one of their screens for like a 5-yard loss. So
took a couple bad angles,
a little up and down. Yeah, kind of the back end of the defense was a little up and down. I mean, Makari, we talked about the tackling issues. That's and I heard this on the MGO Blog podcast. I think it's a good point. Like, maybe in last year's system with the guys around him, he did not have to have as much responsibility in doing all these different things. So maybe that's some of the cause for a little bit of the drop off from the last couple of years where he was really just a safety valve. But the tackling is just, you got to get out there. You got to tackle that donut like for 2 hours a day this week.
Whatever.
Because again, the Oregon guys will house it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So, Will doesn't play. I thought, I know Nick Marsh got 6 on, late in the game, bad angle. I think it was Wesley Walker that was coming back in and just took a poor angle, and he was able to get in the end zone. Pretty inconsequential at that point, thankfully. But yeah, kind of an up and down day for the back seven, all in all. Amir Hall, Jair Hill both graded out over a 70. They were the highest graded defensive backs on Saturday. So I think with Jair Hill, sometimes you take your lumps with a sophomore corner. I will say this, Brian. I'm not going to be surprised in the slightest if this kid turns into an all Big Ten corner that next year we're talking like, okay, like you had some growing pains.
Completely agree.
Kid's a baller because you can see it. And he almost had the pick 6 in the fourth quarter. That would have blown the game wide open. Yep. So, you could feel it. You could see it. Another year of development. I won't be shocked if this kid turns into a higher NFL draft pick. I mean, he's got the physical tools. He's long. He's rangy, and he's athletic as hell. So, you just kind of seeing, same with kind of a guy like Zeke Berry. He's a year older than Jair, but has not played a ton of football up until this season, and you kind of see some of the physical traits. And you're like, okay, and you just kind of see some of the lapses. So these are young guys relative to their academic standing. Again, Zeke Berry's his 3rd year, but has not played a ton. So, kind of Jekyll and Hyde sometimes in the secondary. But it was enough to get the win on Saturday, keep Ball Bunyan here in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, it was great. I think the special teams played a pretty big role in that game too. It seems like we've completely given up on the kick return. Like, we don't put anything back. Like, let's just be safe and take it to the 25. But, thankfully we have a kicker. You watch so many college games, and even Jonathan Kim, who's one of the best kickers in the country, missed a kick early. We just to have someone reliable there. And then as a punter, I don't know what's going on with Tommy. I read something today that they're trying to get his confidence back. That's shaken. Well, it should be shaken because he's been, all due respect to the young man. And he's had moments where he's been awesome. He was the Big Ten Special Teams Player of the Week 2 or 3. So, I don't know what's going on, but the last few games he's really struggled, and it's been a difference. You flip the field position, you can't afford to be, at a program like Michigan where special teams has been such a strength for the last 7, 8 years, really.
Yeah.
It's
Well, and
it's
how
a
many? I mean,
frustrating thing.
that's 2 weeks in a row now with some sort of mishandling of
That too,
the hold, right?
right?
So, yeah, that's been disappointing. I will say it was nice to see some, some life in the punt return game.
Hmm. Yeah.
And also they recovered the onside kick.
Yes.
So
That's
heads up
huge.
play.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've been critical about the fact that Michigan employs somebody who's solely dedicated to the special teams, and the special teams have not been great. And so, they did make some plays, and would like to see Tyler Morris and Samaj Morgan both get opportunities to return punts. I think both are tremendous athletes. Can a couple moves and you might be gone. I mean, we again bring up the Detroit Lions. You saw it there. I mean, special teams can win you a game where they probably would have put up 400 or 500 yards on the Titans, but they didn't need to because their special teams was so phenomenal and was setting them up alongside the turnovers with short field. So, if you can get a couple swing plays, like Michigan's going to need stuff like that to win some of these games down the stretch. You're going to need some sort of momentum type of play. And a lot of times those will come from special teams plays. So, whether it's a kick return, the punt return, I have no idea why you wouldn't just let Samaj go out there and return kicks. I mean, no disrespect to Keyshawn Harris, but why would you not just have Samaj out there? I know they had Jordan Marshall out there, but he's been banged up since I think the Texas game. He was returning kicks at that point. But yeah, give me somebody. Like, just give me somebody electric back
It
there.
has a little bit of a wiggle, right?
Yeah, there's some young kids that are ready to make a play. Like, why not on kick return? So
100%.
You're like I said, you're gonna need some sort of big play in some of these games if you want to upset these teams on the schedule, and special teams can be a good good opportunity for that.
I do think before we kind of had to wrap up and talk about some of the post-game stuff, I do think if you're a Michigan State fan, you should be pretty excited. I think Jonathan Smith's doing
He's a very good
nice job there. I will say I see why, I've watched the last few Michigan State games, and I see why everyone's so excited about Aiden Childs. He's an exciting player, and I don't say this to be a troll or to be negative about him because he seems like he could be really great. I wonder if he looks so good for early parts in that game, and that's been the case a few times this year. And then when the game gets close and tight, is where he seems to make some mistakes. I don't know what that is, and I don't have enough sample size on that. But kid's got a lot of talent, but he's got to, where JJ kind of answered the bell. You need someone there that's gonna answer the bell.
Yeah, and he's a 19-year-old kid
he's a 19-year-old kid. He's a young kid. Right. Yeah.
And played a little bit as a freshman last year at Oregon State. But yeah, definitely can understand why they're very excited about him. I think he's going to be a potentially really good ball player for them. I like Nick Marsh.
Yeah, he's really good.
Can he pull a Keon Coleman and get the hell out of there? He's a very good ball player.
Yeah.
I was, it was a good game, and I think, they're a well-coached team.
No doubt.
With Jonathan Smith, I think he's a really good coach. They should try to hold on to him for as long as they can.
Yeah.
And I don't say that to be mean or talk about the fact that most Michigan State coaches leave to go elsewhere, except for D'Antonio. But yeah, I mean, if you can get him to be your D'Antonio, then you're cooking with grease, right? Like he's a really good football coach. He did a great job at Oregon State, and pretty fortunate for Michigan State that the Big Ten decided to raid USC and UCLA. Otherwise, he's still the head coach of his alma mater. So.
Right.
So okay, let's talk about it. We were nice to Michigan State just now. Stopgate. First of all, I'll say this again. It's very funny seeing these videos circulate of, oh my God, look at Colson Loveland, that are cut and edited right after the Michigan State defender kind of swipes, called a punch. It's more of like the Jawan swipe, if you will. That we saw against Wisconsin a few years ago. Just, I don't know, man. When you play football, yeah, sometimes you get face mask to face mask. It's not like basket. If it was a basketball player headbutting another guy, like, okay, yes, I totally see what you're saying, but that's not what this is. You got a face mask. You don't feel it. It's not malicious. And honestly, very dumb situation all around. There's no reason to go that hard on a kneel down when you have no timeouts. I understand he played to the whistle, but I think that's Bush League in my opinion. And so, some fireworks kind of ensue. And, Michigan State complains. Alan Haller complains. And the Big Ten says, hey, we didn't see anything. And there's nothing that's going to happen. And You know, you've got folks from the Lansing State Journal, you know, protected by
That
being
guy. Oh,
a journalist, you know. I don't know, man. The whole situation stunk, and you know, but that's par for the course in this rivalry, it seems.
it's you hate to see it because it was a good game on both sides. It came down to towards the end, and it was really nothing when you really looked at it. I mean, if you were watching that game and you weren't a fan of Michigan State, it's like, yeah, it's a normal end of the game scrum. Some of the video at the end when they all came together, but nothing. Still on the field. Most of it started when the game was technically still kind of going on. And then at the end there, it was a big nothing gate. And I think, Michigan State's just look after the tunnel, and I get where they're coming from to some extent because Harbaugh was, when the tunnel thing happened, he was like, I want swift action. They should be crucified. And so to see that reciprocated, I don't mind that. But really, an objective person without, anything in the rivalry to take their point of view, that was nothing. It was typical post game. That's what the refs said. The refs said it was nothing. The refs that were there said, yeah, it was typical end of game stuff. And some of the people that were there that weren't affiliated with the team said, yeah, it just kind of seemed like what normally happens at the end of a rivalry game. So, glad that nothing really happened, in terms of suspensions or discipline
Yeah.
or anything like that. I mean, and we can move on and to the back half of a really tough schedule.
To your point, Michigan's got a tough November ahead of them, starting with the number one team in the country coming into the big house. So it's going to be a fun month, probably a stressful month, but hey, it's the best time of year, man. World Series on right now, NBA, NHL, college basketball starting on Monday, and college football is in full swing, man. So let me just say this. I'm not getting political. Let's get through the election so people will stop texting me and I stop having to watch political advertisements so I can just watch my sports in peace and watch normal commercials.
Deal. I co-sign that.
All right, man. Well, thanks everyone for listening. For us, you can follow us at Blue by 90 on Twitter. We're on Facebook. You can check out our podcast, YouTube, Apple, Spotify. We appreciate you. Go Blue.
Go Blue.